My name is Lily, and I'm 37 years old. One day, out of the blue, I heard from a colleague that my dad, Jared, had been rushed to the hospital where I work as a nurse. They said he was conscious and alert, so I went to see him as soon as my shift ended.
Hey, sorry for the trouble.
My dad greeted me with a cheerful smile, but he had been brought in for abdominal pain, and tests revealed he had colon cancer. When I was 14, my dad remarried a woman named Stephanie, who would become my stepmother. As time passed, it became clear that Stephanie was a difficult woman. My biological mom had an affair and left home when I was in second grade. Since then, it was just my dad raising me on his own. But when I got to 8th grade, he introduced me to a woman. That woman was Stephanie, my stepmother. She was 10 years younger than my dad and only 13 years older than me. In the throes of adolescence, I was a bit unsure about having a new mom. But Stephanie felt more like an older sister than a mother, so we quickly became friends. Soon after marrying my dad, Stephanie found out she was pregnant. I had always dreamed of having siblings, so I was overjoyed, jumping around like a little kid. But Stephanie, who had been so kind, changed dramatically the moment she found out she was pregnant. I have terrible morning sickness, so I can't do the housework, she said, leaving it all to me. Even after her morning sickness phase was over, Stephanie continued to neglect housework, claiming she felt unwell and frequently went out with friends. Sometimes she even came home smelling like cigarettes. What on earth is she doing while pregnant? I wondered, even as a middle school student. And when she reached her final trimester, things got even worse. My belly's in the way, she'd say, spending her time at home either sleeping or eating. She'd apologize, saying, Sorry for leaving everything to you, Lily. But it was all talk and no action. I thought if you're going to apologize, do it right. When my little brother was born, I thought I'd have more free time since I'd have less housework to do. I felt a bit relieved. But I soon realized how naive I was. Stephanie, my stepmom, went back to her parents' home 3 hours away for about 3 months after giving birth to my brother Alex. She said she didn't want to be a burden on us. During that time, Dad made a suggestion.
How about we get a housekeeper while Stephanie is away? What do you think?
I was thrilled by the unexpected proposal. For those 3 months with the housekeeper, I'd be studying in my room and the delicious smell of food would waft in. I felt enveloped in happiness. Even when I came home after hanging out with friends, a tasty meal was ready. I thought, so this is what life is like for a typical middle schooler. But when Stephanie returned after her 3-month stay with Alex, she didn't lift a finger around the house. I just had a baby. You can't expect me to do housework. You have the time. You do it, she said. So I had no choice but to sacrifice my study time for chores. I suggested to Stephanie, if you're not feeling well or if taking care of Alex is too much, why not ask Dad or the housekeeper for help? Her unexpected reply shocked me. No way! I don't want to spend money on that. You can handle the chores, Lily. For the first time, I pushed back. I'm preparing for exams, and I need all the time I can get for studying. At this rate, I won't get into the school I want. Holding back tears, I pleaded. Stephanie hugged me and said, You're right, I'm sorry. I was so caught up in my own struggles that I didn't think about you. Please don't tell Jared. I don't want him to leave me. But I knew her apology was just lip service. She seemed to think that a simple apology would make a middle schooler like me forgive her. As time went on, I could see through Stephanie's lies. Even when she hugged me and apologized, I felt nothing. We ended up ordering delivery for dinner that night. After that, Stephanie did start preparing dinner every day, but it was always elaborate dishes. I wondered where she found the time. One day, I saw the trash can filled with containers from supermarket pre-made meals. Turns out, she was just serving pre-made or frozen meals, but Dad never checked the trash, so he had no clue. In any case, I was able to focus on my studies and got into the high school I wanted. One day, after I'd settled into high school life, Dad asked me to go shopping with him before my part-time job. The moment we arrived at the mall and sat down in a cafe, Dad asked me,
"How have things been with Stephanie lately? Is she still making you do all the housework?"
"Wait, you knew about that since I was in middle school?"
"Yeah, I'd heard you were helping out occasionally, but it seems like more than that. I noticed the food tasted different after Stephanie came back."
Dad said, revealing he'd been aware all along. He tried to talk to Stephanie multiple times, but she told him not to stress her out after the baby was born, so he felt he couldn't say more. Actually, after I finished my high school entrance exams, I was made to do housework again. On days off when I'm part-time, I still make the meals. Stephanie told me that since you're a stepchild, you're my housekeeper. She told me that if I said anything bad about her, she would tell you, Dad, to get you to kick me out. That's why I kept quiet until now. I couldn't hold back any longer and told Dad everything. He apologized and patted my head. After talking it over, we agreed that if I got into my dream college, I could move out and live on my own.
"Go for it. I'm rooting for you."
Dad encouraged me, and from that day on, I hit the books hard. When I told Stephanie about the college I was applying to, she opposed it as expected, but Dad smoothed things over. Still, Stephanie seemed to think she'd be in trouble without her free housekeeper, so she started using my 3-year-old brother Alex to disrupt my studies. It was already 10 p.m., and Alex was still awake.
"Sister, let's play!"
Alex ran toward me, toy in hand, as I got home from my part-time job. "I need to eat and then study, Alex. Go to bed," I told him as I picked him up.
"No, Mom said to play with Sister!"
he cried. And this became a daily routine, with Dad calming him down. Despite Stephanie's various attempts to sabotage me, I managed to get into an out-of-state college with Dad's support and moved to a new place. I heard that things got a bit worse for Dad at home, but he continued to live with Stephanie and Alex, who was still too young to be left alone with her. Later, I fulfilled my childhood dream of becoming a nurse, got married, had a child, and returned to work, leading a fulfilling life. That's when Dad was brought in, diagnosed with terminal cancer and given 6 months to live. Stephanie and Alex come to visit me one day a week. Stephanie and Alex, who hadn't seen me in 19 years and seemed to have forgotten all about me, openly badmouthed Dad during their weekly visits. I'd considered saying hello after all these years, but was glad I hadn't. I waited for a time when they weren't around and visited Dad's room with my son.
"I'm so happy to see my grandson's face every day,"
Dad often said. He fought his illness for a year and finally passed away peacefully. I headed to my childhood home to prepare for the funeral. The house had been fully renovated since Dad's hospitalization and looked nothing like the home I remembered. There was no trace of my room left. Stephanie greeted me at the entrance and bombarded me with questions, seemingly unaware that we'd been crossing paths at the hospital every week. The funeral went smoothly, and I was left alone to sort through Dad's belongings. While I was reminiscing over a gift I'd given to Dad as a child, Stephanie barged into the room. "What are you rummaging through? Don't touch anything valuable." "Excuse me?" Ignoring my confusion, she continued. "Don't you know, as a stepmom, this inheritance is mine." I was stunned. "Jared is gone, so you're irrelevant now. Just clean up the junk and leave," she said, trying to kick me out. I left the house with only my memories of Dad, warning Stephanie, "You'll regret this." Stephanie kept making noise while I was packing, but it didn't matter to me anymore. A month after Dad's passing, Stephanie contacted me. "We need you to come home next Sunday to open Jared's will." I agreed and arrived at the house with my husband, Carlos. "Why is Lily's husband here? Lilia knows enough. Go home," Stephanie snapped. I revealed a crucial fact. "Are you sure? We can't proceed with the will unless Carlos is here." "What are you talking about?" Stephanie was about to turn Carlos away when she noticed the shiny badge on his chest. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "Wait, you're not going to tell me this guy is a lawyer, are you?" "Exactly. Carlos is the one who contacted you about the will. So, can we come in now?" Reluctantly, Stephanie led us into my father's room. Carlos set up his laptop and said,
"This will was legally drafted at Jared's request. It reflects his wishes and is legally binding. No changes can be made."
He then played a DVD that showed my dad stating that all his assets would go to me, his biological child. Stephanie and Alex erupted in anger.
This isn't some fake will you two cooked up, is it?
"You must have forced him to say that. This is invalid." Just then, my dad's voice continued on the DVD.
"Stephanie, you've been drugging my food and giving me baths, haven't you? I have no reason to leave anything to you. Also, Alex is not my son. I won't leave my assets to someone with no blood relation. Therefore, everything goes to Lily."
The video stopped. Stephanie yelled, "I'll sue you for this ridiculous lie." I then presented evidence I had gathered at the hospital. "Why is that old man so stubborn? I married him for his money and he just won't die. Normally, with that many sleeping pills, he should have drowned in the bathtub."
Mom, don't say that out loud. My real dad is putting up with you just for the money.
"Your real dad and I lived together for 3 months after you were born. Jared and the little girl never knew that." This conversation played from a voice recorder. Both were flustered and tried to make excuses. "This was just a rehearsal for a play." "A play? A family drama? You are clearly doing this with malicious intent." "You recorded us? That's illegal." I then revealed something Stephanie had overlooked. "You said it right in front of me, in the hospital cafeteria." "There were no other visitors there." "Well, I'm a nurse at the hospital. You exposed your own crimes without even realizing it." Stephanie was speechless. As for Alex, he had borrowed money from shady people, thinking he'd inherit a fortune and bought a luxury car.
"Who's going to pay for my car? My car?"
So I decided to let Dad listen to a conversation I had secretly recorded at the hospital. When he heard it, he looked sad and said,
"I thought so."
After I left home for college, Stephanie stopped doing any housework and started treating Dad poorly. But he said he was putting up with it for Alex's sake. By the time Alex reached 4th grade, he started avoiding Dad, saying things like,
Dad, you're annoying, and don't talk to me.
Fed up with this life, when Alex turned 18, Dad finally confronted Stephanie about getting a divorce. Stephanie retorted, "Who would want to divorce you? I've put up with you this long. A small settlement won't make me happy." Dad didn't want to leave his inheritance to them and was looking for a way out. Then Alex had a severe accident in college and needed a blood transfusion. When they went to the hospital, they found out Dad's blood type didn't match. Suspicious, Dad had a DNA test done and found out they weren't related. After stirring Stephanie with divorce papers, Dad noticed he often felt drowsy after meals. Considering all this, he reached out to Carlos to draft a will. I decided to add insult to injury. Oh, by the way, this house is under both Dad and Stephanie's names, right? I have no stake in it anymore, so good luck with the payments. Stephanie clung to me, saying, "Can't you at least split the mortgage money with me?" Why would I? I'm ashamed I ever thought of you as a good sister. Then lend me some money. Interest-free, of course. Alex chimed in.
Me too. Sis, lend me some money interest-free.
It's the first time you've called me sis, Alex. I was happy to have a brother, but I have no money to lend someone who isn't my sibling, or to a woman who dumped all the housework on me as a teenager. We'll be leaving now. I don't expect to have any further contact with you. Goodbye. I grabbed Carlos's arm and left the house. I later heard from relatives that the two couldn't pay for the house and had to sell it, moving into a cramped apartment. Apparently, no buyer showed up, and a relative bought it at a rock-bottom price. Alex quit college just 6 months before graduating, and is working day and night to pay off debts he borrowed from shady people. He had to give up his luxury car, of course. As for me, Dad left me more inheritance than I expected, thanks to his investments. I'm not obsessed with money, but I plan to use this inheritance to cover future expenses as my daughter grows up. I intend to continue doing my best every day, balancing my responsibilities as a wife, a mother, and a nurse.